I stood there, holding my 2 crying children, as my mother-in-law handed the keys to my house to my husband's pregnant mistress. "She needs it more than you," she said with a smile that made my blood run cold. They had no idea that the broke wife they were throwing out owned the company that paid all their bills. They had no idea I was about to take everything back. If you've ever been underestimated or betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you, this story is for you. Stay until the end because the karma that came for them was more perfect than I could have ever planned. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss stories of justice and revenge. My name is Raylyn, and 8 years ago I made the biggest mistake of my life. I married Brandon Sterling. I was 22, fresh out of college, and stupidly in love. What Brandon didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I wasn't the broke graduate student he thought he was rescuing. At 19, I had started a tech company called Tech Vision Solutions. By the time I met Brandon at 21, that company was already worth millions. By the time we got married, I was sitting on a fortune that would make most people's heads spin. But I hid it all. I wanted to know if someone could love me for me, not for my bank account. I wanted genuine love. Real connection. So I played the part of the struggling freelance consultant working from home on my laptop. Brandon never questioned it. His family never questioned it. They just assumed I was poor, unremarkable, and lucky to have caught their precious son. For 8 years, I lived a double life. By day, I was the submissive daughter-in-law who cooked family dinners and cleaned their houses. By night, I was the CEO of a company worth $800 million, making decisions that affected thousands of employees. I bought the house we lived in and put it in Brandon's name as a wedding gift. I funded his father's failing business through anonymous investments. I even made sure Brandon's marketing firm landed the contract with my company, securing his career without him ever knowing I was the one pulling the strings. I gave them everything while they gave me nothing but disrespect. Brandon's mother, Patricia, treated me like hired help from day one. Every Sunday, she'd call me at 6 in the morning, demanding I come over to prepare lunch for the entire extended family. 15 people, sometimes more. I'd spend hours cooking while she criticized every dish. "Too salty, too bland, can't you do anything right?" She'd say these things loud enough for everyone to hear and they'd all laugh. Brandon would just shrug and tell me to try harder to please his mother. His father, George, simply pretended I didn't exist. In 8 years, he maybe spoke directly to me a dozen times. I was invisible to him, not worth his attention. Brandon's sister, Karen, was even worse. She'd deliberately exclude my children, Sophie and Jake, from family activities while showering her own kids with expensive gifts and attention. She'd make comments about my clothes, my hair, my everything. "Is that the best you can afford?" she'd ask with fake concern, knowing exactly what she was doing. But I endured it all. I told myself I was staying for my children, that they needed a stable family. I was wrong. What they needed was to be away from these toxic people, but I didn't realize that until it was almost too late. 6 months ago, things changed. Brandon started coming home later and later, sometimes not until 2 in the morning. His clothes smelled like perfume, expensive perfume I'd never worn. When I asked him about it, he got angry. The first time he raised his hand to me, Sophie was watching. She was only 6 years old, and she saw her father slap her mother across the face. The look in her eyes that night still haunts me. I found his second phone 3 weeks later, hidden in his gym bag, password protected, but Brandon had always been predictable. It was our wedding date, the one day he apparently still remembered. What I found on that phone changed everything. Hundreds of messages with a woman named Melissa, his co-worker. The messages went back 8 months. 8 months of lies, of planning, of them laughing about how stupid I was for not noticing. But the worst part? Melissa was 6 months pregnant, and they weren't trying to hide it from just me. They were planning how to get rid of me, how to move her into my house, how to take my children and make them call her mom. When I confronted Brandon, I expected denial, maybe even remorse. Instead, I got something worse. He called his mother. Within an hour, the entire family was at our house. Patricia, George, Karen, and her husband Andrew, even Brandon's grandmother. They all sat in my living room, in the house I had bought, and proceeded to tell me why I deserved this. You're always on that laptop, Patricia said, gesturing at my computer like it was evidence of a crime. What kind of wife ignores her husband to type away at nothing? Melissa understands Brandon's needs, Karen added with a smirk. She's supportive. She's present. She's everything you're not. George finally spoke to me, and his words cut deeper than any of the others. My son deserves happiness. You've been holding him back for years. I sat there in silence, my children upstairs hopefully asleep, while these people dismantled 8 years of my life. Then Patricia dropped the real bomb. Melissa is pregnant and alone. She needs a stable home for that baby. This house is perfect for her. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. This is my house, I said quietly. It's in Brandon's name, Patricia shot back. Which makes it his house. And he's decided that Melissa and the baby need it more than you do. You can stay with your parents, can't you? Or find a small apartment somewhere cheap. They had it all planned out. I'd leave quietly, take my children to some tiny apartment in a bad neighborhood, and they'd all play happy family with Melissa. Brandon would get to be the devoted father to his new son. Patricia would get the perfect daughter-in-law she'd always wanted, and I'd be erased from their story like I never existed. You have 1 week, Brandon said, not even looking at me. Pack your things and go. But they weren't satisfied with just taking my home. They wanted to break me completely. That last week was designed to destroy whatever dignity I had left. Melissa moved in immediately, taking over my bedroom while I was given the storage room. It had no windows, just a thin mattress on the floor and my laptop. I had to wake up at 5 every morning to prepare Melissa's breakfast. Patricia supervised, making sure I did everything right. She's eating for 2, she'd remind me daily. Unlike you, she's actually giving my son a healthy baby. The daily humiliations were calculated and cruel. Melissa accidentally spilled hot coffee on my hand, laughing it off as pregnancy clumsiness. Patricia cut my hair while I was sleeping one night, butchering it so badly I had to wear a hat. Now you look as ugly outside as you are inside, she said when I saw myself in the mirror. But the worst day was day 6. Sophie and Jake had been crying, asking why Melissa was sleeping in Mommy and Daddy's room, why we were leaving. Patricia's solution was to lock them in the basement for 3 hours as punishment. I heard my babies screaming, begging to be let out, and Patricia physically blocked me from the door. Let them learn, she hissed. Their mother is abandoning them because she doesn't love them enough to fight for her marriage. They need to understand what kind of person you are. Something broke inside me that day. Or maybe something finally clicked into place. I stopped crying. I stopped begging. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. On the 7th day, they threw me a farewell party. They actually invited neighbors and extended family to watch my humiliation. Each person gave a speech about my failures as a wife and mother. Melissa announced she was having a boy, and they'd name him Brandon Jr., the son he always deserved. They made me give a speech thanking them for the opportunity to be part of their wonderful family. I stood up, looked at every single face in that room, and smiled. Thank you all for showing me exactly who you are. I'll never forget this. They thought I was talking about gratitude. I was making a promise. I moved out that night with Sophie and Jake. They thought I was going to some tiny apartment. Instead, my driver took us to my penthouse in the most expensive building downtown, 15,000 square feet overlooking the water. My children thought it was a hotel at first. It's not a hotel, babies, I told them. It's our new home. The next morning, I walked into my office at Tech Vision Solutions. My assistant, Margaret, was waiting with a list. Operation Phoenix is ready to execute, she said. Just say the word. I didn't hesitate. Burn it all down. The first domino fell on Monday morning. Brandon's company, Preston and Associates, received an email. Tech Vision Solutions was terminating their contract effective immediately. That contract represented 85% of their revenue. By Friday, half the company was laid off. Brandon's salary was cut by 60%. The second domino fell the same week. George's investment portfolio, which I had carefully built up over the years through various shell companies, collapsed overnight. I sold every single share, tanking the stock prices in the process. His retirement fund lost $400,000 in value. He was 67 years old. There was no recovering from that. The third domino was Karen's husband, Andrew. The company he worked for, which my firm had quietly acquired 2 years ago, underwent sudden restructuring. His specific position was eliminated. No severance package. They had $800 in savings and 3 kids to feed. I watched it all unfold from my office, tracking every move, every desperate phone call, every panicked message. They still had no idea I was behind it. They just thought they were having exceptionally bad luck. By month 2, Brandon couldn't pay the mortgage. Melissa was panicking, threatening to leave. Patricia had to sell her jewelry, the pieces I had actually bought through Brandon. She got $12,000 at a pawn shop. They were worth $80,000, but desperate people don't negotiate well. The family started turning on each other. Patricia blamed Brandon for pushing away the only one who was working. Karen showed up demanding help, screaming that this was all Brandon's fault. Melissa realized Brandon had lied about his finances and his family's wealth. The perfect family was eating itself alive. 3 months after I left, Brandon drove by my small apartment to drop off the kids for my supervised visitation. Except he followed my car afterward and watched me pull into the parking garage of the Tech Vision Solutions headquarters. He saw me get out in my designer suit, saw my assistant greet me with a tablet full of reports, saw the security guards call me Ms. Sterling with respect and deference. That night, he searched my name online. And there I was. Forbes, Fortune, Business Insider. Raylan Sterling, the secret billionaire who built an empire by 30. Articles about my company, my success, my philanthropy. Photos of me at charity galas, speaking at conferences, accepting awards. He called an emergency family meeting. I know because I had surveillance on all of them by then. I watched through the security cameras I'd had installed in Patricia's house months ago as Brandon showed them the articles. Patricia actually fainted. Karen screamed. George just sat there calculating all the money they'd lost, all the opportunities they'd destroyed. "We threw away a billionaire," Karen kept repeating. "We threw away a billionaire for a secretary." Melissa started crying. "You told me you were successful. You said your family was wealthy. I left my job for this." They spent the next 3 hours screaming at each other, blaming each other, destroying what was left of their relationships. It was beautiful. The apology attempts started immediately. Brandon sent 200 text messages in one day. All ignored. He sent flowers to my office. Security threw them in the trash before they even reached the lobby. He wrote a 10-page letter claiming he was manipulated by his family, that he always loved me, that he made a terrible mistake. My lawyer sent a response, "Cease all contact or face a restraining order." Patricia was more dramatic. She showed up at my office building and made a scene in the lobby, getting on her knees and begging security to let her see me. "I'm her mother-in-law. She has to see me. My grandchildren need their grandmother." Security removed her, and someone filmed the whole thing. The video went viral. The internet dug up her social media posts celebrating my departure, the photos from the farewell party, everything. The comments destroyed her. Karma is beautiful. She got exactly what she deserved. This is the most satisfying thing I've ever seen. They all showed up at Sophie's school one day trying to intercept me during pickup. I had bodyguards by then. They caused such a scene that the police were called. I filed for a restraining order against all of them. It was granted immediately. Melissa had Brandon's baby and promptly left him. Her parents paid the hospital bills because Brandon had $147 in his bank account. She took him to court for child support. His wages were garnished. He couldn't afford his own lawyer. He was broken. Karen, desperate for money, sold their story to a tabloid. "We rejected a billionaire, the biggest mistake of our lives." The article went viral. They became an internet meme. Their faces were everywhere with the caption, "How to fumble $1 billion." They couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. Patricia's church group kicked her out. George's golf club revoked his membership. They became social pariahs in their own community. The divorce hearing was 6 months after I left. Brandon tried to claim half of everything. His cheap court-appointed lawyer argued he was entitled to marital assets. My team of 5 lawyers destroyed him in under an hour. They presented the prenuptial agreement, ironclad and clear. Every asset in my name only. They showed that the house was a gift that could be revoked due to the adultery clause. They played audio recordings of the family's cruelty, showed videos from the hidden cameras I'd installed, presented text messages of Brandon and Melissa mocking me. They brought in Sophie and Jake's therapist, who testified about their trauma. The judge was visibly disgusted. "You treated your wife like garbage while living off her money," he said to Brandon. "You deserve nothing." Brandon got 0 assets. I got full custody. He got supervised visitation, 4 hours per month. He had to pay child support of $2,000 monthly, knowing he couldn't. He had to repay $250,000 in loans from my company. He cried in court. His parents watched in stone-faced silence. Since the house was my gift, I took it back. Eviction notice served. Brandon had 30 days. On day 30, the sheriff escorted him out with 1 suitcase. He moved in with his parents, but they were being evicted too. Foreclosure. 8 months after I left, their destruction was complete. Brandon was living in a trailer park, working at a warehouse for $15 an hour. Patricia and George lost their home and were living in a subsidized senior apartment. George's health was failing from the stress. Karen and Andrew had moved to another state where Andrew worked in fast food and Karen cleaned houses. Melissa was a single mom living with her parents, realizing too late that she'd destroyed her life for a lie. I sent them all one final package, a USB drive containing every text message they'd sent mocking me, every video of them celebrating my departure, every recording of their plotting sessions, and a note. "I heard everything. I saw everything. You destroyed yourselves." Patricia had a complete breakdown and was hospitalized. This was never just revenge, it was justice. Today, 1 year later, I'm standing in a ballroom hosting a charity gala for my foundation, Phoenix Rising. It helps abused women escape their situations with housing, legal aid, and job training. I've donated $200 million of my own money to this cause. Sophie is 7 now. Jake is 5. They're thriving in private school, taking art and music lessons, seeing therapists who help them heal. They have a nanny named Miss Claire who loves them genuinely. They don't ask about Brandon anymore. They call him by his first name now, not Daddy. And I'm not alone. I met Daniel 6 months ago, a pediatric surgeon who knew exactly who I was from the first date. He loves my children like his own. Sophie and Jake call him Dr. Dan. He proposed last month. I said yes. Tonight, as I'm standing next to Daniel in my custom gown, I see someone across the ballroom carrying a tray of champagne glasses. It's Brandon. He's working as catering staff, barely making enough to survive. Our eyes meet. His face crumbles with the weight of everything he lost, everything he threw away. I smile, genuinely happy with my life, and turn to kiss Daniel. Behind me, I hear glass shatter. Brandon dropped his tray. I hear his supervisor firing him on the spot. I don't look back. I don't need to. That chapter of my life is closed, and the next one is better than I ever imagined. They thought I was nothing because I chose to be humble. They mistook my kindness for weakness, my silence for stupidity. But the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. I didn't need to scream, to fight, to beg. I just needed to step back and let them destroy themselves with their own greed and cruelty. If this story of ultimate revenge gave you chills, hit that like button right now. Comment below Team Raylin if you think I did the right thing, or tell me what you would have done differently. Subscribe and turn on notifications because I have more stories of people who underestimated the wrong person. Remember, never judge someone's power by how quietly they move. The most dangerous people are the ones you never see coming. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their time is coming too. Karma is patient, but she never forgets an address. I'll see you in the next one.